Alright guys, hope you're doing really well. Today we're going to be talking about elections as well as third parties of the United States. I hope you guys enjoy this, and without further ado, let's get it going. So, elections. So what was the whole point behind learning where political parties stand on issues? Well, because the whole point of political parties is political parties are formed so that way they can try to get someone into office, a position of government, whether it be president, mayor, governor, representative, whatever it may be. So the whole point at the end of the day is to try to get people into government to do the things we hopefully want them to do. So let's have a little bit of a discussion as to why do we vote. You may not be old enough to vote right now, but someday you will be. And when that time comes, it's very important to A, be a very informed voter, which we've talked about with those core beliefs of those political parties, and B, know why it's important to vote. This is your chance to shine. This is your chance to help decide what our country decides to do. What direction does our country go? This is your chance to pick the people that ultimately make decisions on your behalf. This is something that most of the rest of the world does not get to do. A lot of people born in a lot of countries simply don't get a chance to pick their leaders or decide what their policies are going to be. Some countries even have voting, but it's not voting for like the biggest leaders. It's just for little positions. And some people have things very similar to the United States, but there's still some restrictions involved. The United States is a beautiful creation in the sense that you can change any aspect of government that you want. It's all done by the people. So in other words, it's your time to shine. But what makes that important to you? Well, if you choose the wrong people, mistakes may happen, and you may have to call a plumber. Ultimately, if you choose people that you don't like, they might ultimately do things that you also will not like. Let's take a couple examples. Maybe you're someone who loves lower taxes. I mean, who wouldn't? That means there's more money in your bank account and you can use it to buy stuff like iPhones and Jordans and makeup and all that different stuff that a teenager needs. Well, if you choose someone who wants to raise taxes and they raise taxes, well, guess how much money is going to be taken away from your bank account at that point? Or how about you're someone that really likes polar bears? Even though polar bears eat people, you like polar bears and you want more stuff done to help the environment. Well, imagine if people just decided to pick people in Congress who are just like, environment, not so important. Well, that means polar bears would not get the help that you want them to have. So at the end of the day, the whole point of that is if you don't like what people are doing in government, or if you want to make sure that people do the things that you like in government, well, you're ultimately going to need to vote. Otherwise, you might have to call the plumber. That's why we join political parties. That's the whole point of political parties. Running for president by yourself isn't going to cut it. Joining a team of millions of voters is going to give you a much better chance to get the people that you want into office. That's why they have those core beliefs. If you want to be part of that party, have very similar beliefs to that because those people want people to vote for with those beliefs. And it's almost impossible nowadays to run without a political party. In other words, a president will have a political party from this point forward. It's just very impossible for it to not be the case. Not impossible. There is one president that didn't have a political party. That's George Washington. But at the same time, that was George Washington. He didn't need a political party. He was already famous. So, anywho, how do we vote 101? Here's the requirements to vote in the United States of America. Are you a citizen of the United States? Do you meet your state's residency requirement? Are you 18 years old? Are you registered to vote? If you answered yes to all those things, you can vote. Considering you definitely shouldn't have answered 3 or 4, that means at least if it was a conversation between me and you, it looks like I'm the only one who can vote at that point. Who cannot vote in the United States? Well, This should be pretty straightforward, but non-citizens, which some people say is pretty cruel, but let's look at it from an obvious standpoint. If you made it where non-citizens could vote, that means people in other countries could vote and influence your leaders. Do you really want people in China and Russia voting for people to lead your country, the United States of America? No. People with felony convictions, which, if you need a reminder, felonies are the serious crimes, which come with very, very, very lengthy jail terms and prison sentences. Although some states do allow it, just depends the states. Misdemeanors, you're fine. Some people who are mentally incapacitated, because if you can't bubble in a sheet of paper because you're that mentally incapacitated, then obviously you probably shouldn't vote. And people under 18 years old, which is, oh yeah, that's you. You don't see it right now, but I'm smiling and giving you the thumbs up because that's you. Don't worry, your time will come, and you guys will make great choices once you get there. Next question, when do we vote, Mr. Shoens? Well, we have an election every 2 years, regardless of if there's a president up for election, a senator, or not. And the reason why is because there is a position in government that changes every 2 years. That's the House of Representatives. So every 2 years there's an election. And according to the Constitution, that election has to be on the first Tuesday after November 1st. Meaning this year, because Monday, or November 2nd is a Monday, Election Day is going to be November 3rd this year. Now, the reason why you might think, like, why on earth did the people in our Constitution, so our founding fathers, decide why they choose a Tuesday to vote for it? Normally, I'd go into a little bit more lengthy explanation, but I'll give you the short summary. It's because they didn't want to miss church. Because back then, you couldn't just take a car to your polling place. You had to take a horse, and that could be 100+ miles depending on the situation. So you went to church on Sunday, you used Monday as a traveling day, and then Tuesday was the day to vote. Kind of interesting how religious our founding fathers were, or at least how much they value and respected it. So today, Tuesday is our election days. Where do we vote? Well, you vote at a polling station in person, and it all depends on where you live. Your polling station might be a library, a government building, a school, just depends. When you go into there, you'll present your driver's license. They'll verify that your address checks out. So in other words, you can't just choose any polling station. It's got to be the one that is in your precinct, which is your address location. So like someone like me, if I was chilling in Michigan at the time and it came time for the election, I can't just pull into any Michigan polling place. I live in Florida. So you go to a polling station. Now, some people might think, I really don't want to deal with those lines and stuff like that, so can I just vote online? Good question. No. That should be pretty straight obvious. We don't want our elections hacked or something like that. You have two options when it comes to voting. You can either vote in person at a polling station on the day of election day, or maybe if you can't show up for that day for whatever reasons, you're on a vacation or you have surgery that day or something of that nature, you can do something known as an absentee ballot, which is basically you write your votes in ahead of time and you send it off with your blessings to be counted as your votes. There is some benefits to that. Obviously, you don't have to wait in line and stuff like that. But there are also some serious concerns, i.e. that sometimes your votes might get lost or just outright not counted. It just really depends. So if you really want your vote to count, I would encourage you to actually go in line at the polling stations. Do I have to vote with my party? This is a good question. Short summary in a general election, no. But in a primary election, yes. I'll explain more on that tomorrow. Speaking of voting, were any of you guys in the situation when we were doing political parties that you kind of wanted to put a sign outside your door that said nope and noper, as in you didn't like where the Republicans or Democrats stood? Well, what if I told you that despite the United States being two major political parties, which obviously those are the Republicans and Democrats, we do have other parties beside them? Because if you look at it historically, it hasn't always been the same political parties who are the major political parties throughout history. Our country started with Federalists and Democratic Republicans. Neither exists today. So a third party eventually rises to the occasion and basically takes the throne of the others. Now, I like this picture of Abraham Lincoln because it really shows a short meme version of how valuable third parties can be. This is what happens when you waste your vote on a third party candidate. Republicans were not a major party during that election, yet Abraham Lincoln won. And then because of what Abraham Lincoln did, obviously Republicans is one of the most prominent parties today. So I'm going to show you briefly, if I had more time in the classroom, I'd go over the core beliefs of each, but we're just going to introduce it and you guys can do your own research if you want. The third parties of the United States. Now, these parties are small. Take the Green Party, for example. This is a party that only 258,000 people are in. The Republicans and Democrats both have 40 million each. So this is a really, really small party compared to them. However, they are a party that's very super environmentally friendly, very pro-environment. There's nobody in Congress in this party because, like I said, it's an extremely small party. But if you are very pro-environment, maybe this is the party for you. The next third party is the Libertarian Party, probably the biggest of all the third parties with 500,000+ people in it, but granted, this is something that is still very small compared to Republicans or Democrats. These guys are a little bit more like very pro-government should stay out of things. So kind of like Republicans on steroids with a little mix of Democrat values thrown in as well. They very much that government should stay out of things and mind its own business. You can find out to the degree on your own because I got to get going. The Socialist Party of the United States. Now, if you are someone who likes socialism, then this is obviously the party designed for you. If you don't know what socialism is, feel free to send me an email at shoensk@koreanwpp.org. I promise to not make fun of you for it. But long story short, there's a party for people who like socialism. There's even a party that likes communism. Although if you look at the numbers, which is less than 5,000 people in the US, you can get the idea. And if you don't know what communism is, it's basically the government should control absolutely everything, which is no bueno. But anywho, and you might see my humor there by saying people in Congress, both of them is better not, because obviously I'm someone who doesn't want government to control everything, and I think most of you would agree on that. But that is a third party in the United States. And the final third party of the United States is the Constitution Party, which, long story short, is a party that is very pro-Constitution. The Constitution says what it is, and that's that. But maybe all five of those third parties and the two major political parties still didn't. I just don't like them, Mr. Shoens. You can be independent. Maybe those parties you don't agree with, or maybe there's some things you agree with certain parties and some things you agree with the other parties, and just you don't know where to stand because you're a bit of a mix. That's okay. It's called being independent. When you go to register for vote, you can pick none when it comes to political parties. Now, there is some benefits to that, as in you don't get to vote for like primary elections, but no one's going to force you in the United States to be in a political party, in other words. That's your decision. You might choose a political party because it's like, okay, I agree with 6 out of 8 things, so it's pretty good, even though 2 of the things I disagree with, but I still want to be able to vote in primary elections, and that's A-okay. I would encourage you guys, regardless of what political parties you stand for and stuff, always vote on issues. If there's a candidate, regardless of party, who is doing something that you're really passionate about it, well, don't think you're betraying your team or something like that. Anywho, these are the final notes for that political parties notes packet that I gave you guys about a week ago. Make sure you finish that off with those third parties. And make sure you do the worksheet, the ballot worksheet found in RenWeb, because it is due by Wednesday at turnitin.com. Tomorrow we'll be talking about what that election actually looks like with campaigning and nominations and what's the difference between a primary and general election. But otherwise, and anywho, have fun with this, guys. Shoens out.